quasi-judicial meeting, which means that members of the committee sit not as ward councillors, but as representative of the council as a whole. No decisions have been made before this meeting, and only members who have completed the mandatory training are able to vote. In fact, all members present have completed that mandatory training. We've also got people here who have stated that they wish to speak on particular planning applications. We deal with those applications on an area basis, and I'll introduce those people at the relevant time. Just to remind those people that your contribution should be limited to 3 minutes. Can I also remind everyone present to switch off your mobile phones, and remind councillors that you don't enjoy parliamentary privilege, so please be aware of that when speaking. So, on to item 1 of the agenda. This is to advise the meeting that today's meeting is being filmed and live streamed on the web. Members of the press and public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of item 12, I'm a trustee of Birmingham LGBT, and I have been involved in discussions referred to, so I will withdraw that point.
Okay, thank you for that. Sure.
Thank you, Chair. On item 10, obviously it falls within my ward, and a couple of weeks back I visited the gasworks site, but in my capacity as a local councillor just to look on the dismantle works. So I do plan to participate in the proceedings.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Any other declarations? Can we move on to item 3? Apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Payne and Councillor Rainbow. Councillor Moore.
Apologies from Councillor David Barrett.
Thank you. Item 4, I don't have any announcements. Item 5, the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of September have been circulated. Is it agreed that I confirm and sign them as a correct record of that meeting? Thank you. Moving on to planning applications. The first one is item 6, relating to 1750 to 1756 Pershore Road, Cotteridge. I'll ask the officer for any updates on that report.
There are no updates on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have speakers on this report. Can I take, there is an objector who I understand is a local resident, so if you'd like to address the committee now.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'll just start my stopwatch because 3 minutes isn't very long.
Sure.
I just want to ask the committee, who's lived in a shared house before? Show of hands. Most people have when they've got a uni, yeah. I've lived in shared houses for many years before I bought a house. The most people I shared with was 5. It was in one house. And I actually knew the people, so we had quite a lot of fun. We were all working, plenty of money to spend, no kids. But we always had problems. The fridge is always a problem. You know, communal areas is always a problem. I can't imagine sharing a house with 11 people. And I've made an adjustment. I know you've gone down from 14 to 12. So I'm fairly practical. I like to sort of look at things in a practical way. So it's basically a metre, 1.18 metres, which is from the end of there to about there, square. So that is the new adjusted amount that you'll have as a communal area in the lounge. Can you imagine living in accommodation like that? You know, I think you get more space when you're in prison. You know, it's the sort of place that you'd expect Priti Patel to send someone to, you know, rather than a Labour council. So what's going to happen is, of course, if you're feeling cramped, you go outside. Now, I suspect people that are going to be living there won't be high earners. They won't be able to afford to sit in the pub or, you know, do lots of leisure activities. They'll probably do like most of the other people from the HMOs do in the area. And that's go and buy an out-of-date, strong can of lager and sit around the benches and outside the schools, and we have that already. We also have drug dealers in the area. You know, that brings us on to the schools. It's not going to be very pleasant for mums and young kids, and some kids actually.
1 minute left.
1 minute left, okay, thank you. To go past there, you know, at that school, my lad went to that school, and in his last year, he went to and from school on his own. So there's a vulnerability thing there. The council have tried to address safety by adjusting Breedon Road and making it more safe for the pupils and the parents crossing. So that's great, you know, a bit more safety. This is a safety issue, without a doubt, and I think it needs a bit more thought. The other aspects, of course, the Breedon Road changes have caused, you know, less parking spaces. There's a lot less spaces than there were. We already had a problem in the area. If the residents are fortunate enough to own a car, I suspect they won't be kind of in that level, but you never know. Some of them might get jobs, they might start earning a bit of money, get a car. Where are they going to park? I've got loads of other things on this list, but that's it, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I've also got a survey that I took, which I can give to you, that just addresses a few questions, and really no one saw your sign on the amber windows. I don't even think it's there anymore. And it was placed amongst a load of flyers, literally a sign about that big.
You have had 3 minutes.
Okay, I can give you that anyway to take away.
Thank you. And I next invite Sarah Jones from Claremont Planning to speak as a supporter.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is indeed Sarah Jones of Claremont Planning, and I'm here to represent the applicants of Pershore Road, who are proposing a conversion of the site into a 12-bedroom HMO. Thank you for the comments from the objector. I'd just like to address a couple of those. The officers have supported the high quality of accommodation proposed here, with all the bedrooms nearly doubling the minimum floor space requirements of 7.5 square metres. This is complemented by a generous kitchen dining room provision and a further large communal lounge area. Officers have confirmed the acceptability of outdoor amenity space provision on site and recognising the close proximity of Cotteridge Park and other green spaces. The proposal is compliant with minimum separation distances, safeguarding the privacy of adjacent occupiers, and highways have also demonstrated support for the scheme, recognising the sustainability and cycle provision proposed and the site's highly sustainable location and good transport links. We consider that the proposed development will assist in meeting an identified need for high quality accommodation for young professionals, complying with the Council's evidence base and current 5-year land supply shortfall. The loss of the site's existing retail use has been accepted by Council officers, given the site's out-of-centre location. Currently, the retail unit is vacant and derelict, and the proposed works to restore the building frontage will provide an improvement to the street scene. And officers have also confirmed that the proposal is not harmful to the character of the area and will not result in an over-concentration of HMOs in this area. The proposals were revised following officers' feedback, including a reduction in the number of units from 14 to 12, which has been supported by the Council and other consultees. The proposed layout has been revised, relocating ground floor bedrooms away from the road frontage to ensure that occupiers are not exposed to excessive noise from Pershore Road. Furthermore, a condition is imposed to provide a noise insulation scheme to protect residential amenity. The amendments have also included the provision of a dedicated bin store with direct access from the frontage. Overall, we consider that the proposal offers a high-quality scheme that I hope you can support. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to bring the officer back and then throw it open to the committee members for questions and comments. But before I do that, I just make it clear that we cannot accept any further documentation of anyone at this meeting. It's actually too late because people then wouldn't have had the chance to comment on that. So that's a very strict policy of this committee.
I wasn't told about that, so I wasn't made aware of that.
I've made you aware of it now.
Okay, good.
Just a couple of points I wanted to make. In terms of the quality of accommodation, the kitchen diner is 35 square metres and it's a separate lounge, 21 square metres. Very good size of accommodation. And also each of the individual bedrooms are at least 14 square metres, which is. We shouldn't really be making assumptions about the kinds of people that may or may not live in this property. Available to rent on the private market. Will be any more intensive than the existing.
Thank you. It's now open to members of the committee for questions, comments. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'm disappointed to see this large-scale HMO in an area that's already got a more than ample supply of HMOs. Few people will choose to share a house with so many others. Preference of most people is to have a place of their own. The building is currently one large shop and 3 flats and could easily be converted into 6 flats. I think that would, enhance the street scene, improve the derelict building. It would add to the supply of housing, and will be much better for the people who will end up living there. I'm generally not in favour of this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I am concerned that this is a significantly more intensive use than is currently there, the 4 flats and retail unit. And whilst we seem to be touching on the internal amenity space, we seem to have overlooked the fact that the external amenity space is below standard, quite significantly. But that is not private amenity space, that is public. Anyone can access that. This size without the adequate outdoor amenity space. We've resisted HMOs on that basis before.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Marshall?
Overall, I think the proposal probably marks improvement on the road and what was there before. And I suspect, given their target market, it will prove popular given the good public transport links and the vibrance of Sturchley High Street, which is obviously not too far away. So overall, I don't think retail will come back to that site. So I think this is probably the best use of what's there.
Thank you. Any other comments, question? I'll bring the officer back.
Thank you. In terms of supply, there is less than 10% HMOs in the area, so we don't consider it being an over-concentration of such uses. And in terms of the housing market, it's good to have choice and variety and demand for this accommodation. In terms of garden sizes, it is only a small shortfall of 36 square metres. The provision is acceptable in this space. Parks and drive.
Thank you. So the application is before you. I'm going to take the vote now. All those in favour? 2. Those against? That is, sorry, I should take abstentions. 1. I think we need to be absolutely clear what the reason for refusal is. And I'm assuming that we're talking about the quality of the accommodation and amenity spaces that is going to be the grounds on which we've actually refused this. Okay, so it's refused. The voting was 4 against, 2 in favour and 1 abstention.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item 7, which is the report on 8 Shutlock Lane, Kings Heath.
So we've got 2 updates on this application. There's been 2 further objections received raising the following additional matters. The care provider has previously received a poor Ofsted report, and the local area has very few amenities which can detrimentally impact on the development of the proposed occupiers. And secondly, paragraph 5.6 of the officer report should have included a further objection from council, which raised the following concerns. There is no information about the management of the children's home. The plans show no provision for on-site staff or any evidence of the experience or operators. Previous planning approval or extensions could be implemented. And Shutlock Lane used to be an area of restraint from further concentrations of institutional uses, and there is a severe shortage of affordable 3 to 4 bed.
Okay, thank you for that. There are no members of the public speaking on this, so it's straight through to members. Any comments or questions? Councillor Marshall.
Although the loss of the family home is disappointing, I think the intended purpose of a children's care home makes this more justifiable and worthwhile worth doing.
Thank you, Chair. Understand children's can often create a lot of apprehension. It's disappointing that more information is put into the public domain process, because I think that could reassure them. Some of the public very clear about what was potentially going to be. But I know that trust and recommend that this is a well-known provider to them, and they have no real concern with them. So I suspect this will be hopefully a well-run children's home, and if they don't, I expect them to take action on that. So, but given that the children seem comfortable and not objected to this, I'm minded to go ahead with it.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Green, then Councillor Jones.
I know that this is a semi-detached property, and we've discussed similar applications in the past. Recommendations are for detached properties for this use. Why are we allowing this one?
Councillor Jones.
Accommodation is desperately needed for these kind of children. We talked about 2 children. I'll have staff on site. I agree with what you're saying before. We talked about insulation, so maybe we should make points about that. But yeah, children, as Councillor Royce said, children's just supporting this, and we desperately need this kind of accommodation. Children who are in care and have these serious emotional issues need to be living within local communities, not stuck in some institution somewhere. I fully recommend.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I bring Andrew back.
Thank you. There would be a preference for detached properties, but in this instance, it is only 2 children. So, from our perspective, it wouldn't be any more intensive than typical family use. And we've also attached a condition that requires this insulation scheme to ensure that there isn't any impact on joint properties.
Thank you. The recommendations are before you. They're in item 9 of the report with the 8 conditions listed. All those in favour? Seven votes in favour, no votes against. So that is carried with the subject to the conditions listed. Thank you. Thanks. So we're now moving on to planning applications for the north area. I'm just going to give the officers time to accommodate themselves, and then we'll move on to item 8, which is the report on Holland Road car park. really.
Yes.
Any updates? On
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have a number of updates on the site. So since publication of the officer's report and the agenda, there's been some further discussions with our colleagues in regulatory services, and we would like to make some changes to conditions. So this relates to adding ventilation details to the noise insulation condition. Would also like to add a condition to require the 6 units on the northern elevation to be sealed. So that includes bedrooms, kitchens and living rooms. So that relates to the habitable rooms. And also add a condition to require overheating and ventilation assessment. As identified in the officer's report, these requirements only relate to a small number of units. So it's 6 out of the proposed 43 units will be sealed. This represents just under 14% of the total units. Officers consider the significant benefits associated with the scheme and highlighted within the report, this arrangement is considered acceptable. Also like to amend the second bullet point at paragraph 9.1 to read a commitment from the sale of the car park to fund the refurbishment of the cinema to the amount of £200,000. £200,000. In the event that no refurbishment of the cinema takes place within the relevant timeframe, the sum of money is reallocated towards off-site affordable housing. Also like to amend paragraph 9.2, and this relates to the reasonable refusal if section 106 is not completed, subject to the planning committee agreeing to the officer's recommendation, and that would include the absence of a commitment from the sale of the car park would be contrary to policy TP12. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have got public speakers on this report, so can I now invite Anthony Whitehead on behalf of the Friends and Future of the Cinema in Sutton Coldfield to speak to us. Yeah, you got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm representing the future of the Sutton Coldfield Cinema. Start out with the group. There's over 500 registered interest people from the group. That's outstanding for Sutton Coldfield, which is not a very campaigning town by any means. That represents the strength of view about the former Odeon Cinema, now Empire Cinema, and the very strong concerns. There was a straw poll taken last night. There's an awful lot of interest in this committee, and 43%, that's 54 votes, the people who undertook that poll, continue to object. It's the largest slice that object to the current applications, which is the McCarthy and Stone development and the related listed building issue, which is the consent. We're talking about the McCarthy and Stone application now. The fact is that I've been told, I've taken a lot of soundings this week, local councillors, local MP, local experts, if you like, and whilst generally there's a welcoming of the deal, it's not enough money for the scale of the problem, which is the cinema. What Empire Cinemas have done is they're flogging off their crown jewels, the only thing of value, which is the car park. They've gone through difficult times, like the hospitality and cinema sector has generally. We sympathise with that. But once that car park is sold, the options for that listed building, grade 2 listed building, a big building with a lot of repairs, is very uncertain. It will have no value. And the expectation is that Empire Cinemas will maybe hang on to it because obviously the local politicians will be here. How long are they going to keep it going? We don't think very long. And then it becomes a big problem. It doesn't have the saving opportunity of the car park sitting alongside it. It's there as a big, restricted, listed building, listed cinema. We've always thought this is a community regen issue, not a planning issue, and we've pushed very hard with your officers on that. We feel there's an opportunity here, a great opportunity for the town and Birmingham to see this as maybe a community enterprise. We look very interested in what Whitton Lodge are doing at Erdington. We'd like to see that happen here. Really, what these decisions today do on the applications is close off options, and we're terribly concerned about that. Really need a broader discussion about the future of the cinema and a sustainable future for the cinema, which we don't think will happen if this application is approved.
Thank you. I now invite Rachel Clare from the Planning Bureau to speak in as a supporter.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here today to speak on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposals. I don't propose to go over the details, which is covered in the report, but to focus on the sort of planning matters for consideration here. So the proposals will provide 43 specialist retirement dwellings in a highly sustainable location within the town centre of Sutton Coldfield, where existing stock of specialist housing for older people is low. Much of it is old and unsuited to modern needs, whilst we have an ageing population which is driving a significant need for this type of development. All in the context that Birmingham City Council at present are unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. The applicant and the cinema have committed to signing up to a 106, which will secure a financial contribution towards the refurbishment of the cinema to alleviate any concern that the cinema's future. And that is also being supported by a listed building consent that you'll hear later today. And Empire Cinema have been open and forthright in their communications about their commitment to reopening the cinema, but that funding is needed to do that. And quite simply, without that funding, it will remain closed as it has been for 2 years. In addition, the proposals will reuse a currently vacant and brownfield site within the town centre, as supported by both local and national planning policies, including Sutton Coldfield's own town centre master plan, which seeks to consolidate car parking in the town to achieve a modal shift away from private vehicles. The development will also secure a biodiversity net gain, provide sustainable drainage features and EV charging points, which will further contribute towards its sustainability credentials. It's been concluded with regard to the cinema that the proposals would result in a low level of less than substantial harm. Where less than substantial harm to the significance of a heritage asset is identified, this harm should be weighed against the benefits of the proposals, including securing its optimum viable use, which in this case is a cinema. The proposals will deliver a number of substantial benefits, as just covered, whilst also helping to secure the future of the cinema, not hindering it, through the developer's contribution. And therefore, it's considered that the benefits of the proposals significantly outweigh this less than substantial harm. And for those reasons, I'd urge you to follow your officer's recommendations and grant planning permission for the proposals. Thank you.
Bring the officer back, and then I'll throw it open to members for discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you to our speakers this morning. I see two sort of points there which probably need sort of addressing to assist the members in making their decision on the planning application. The first one relating to the loss of the car park in the first instance. So obviously the cinema itself is located within the town centre, and Sutton Coldfield town centre, and with such a variety of alternative means of access due to its town centre location, including more sustainable modes of transport, as well as the other provision of other parking facilities for private vehicles within the town centre. It is officers' view that there is no planning justification to prevent the development of the site on the grounds of loss of car parking. Now, moving on to the issue of the impact of the loss of the car park on the listed cinema itself. So the loss of a historic car parking facility. So the car park itself was part of the original cinema when it was built. There was, it was seen as it was anticipated that there would be growth in car ownership. So it was sort of provided at the same time when the cinema was built. But officers do consider, with the input from our conservation officers, that it does represent a low-level scale of less than substantial harm to the significance of this heritage asset. Under such circumstances, the NPPF requires the harm to be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal, where appropriate, securing its optimum viable use. Now, the report identifies what these benefits are, but I think it'd be useful just to highlight what these are for the benefit of the members. So the benefit is the efficient use of a brownfield site in a sustainable town centre location, the provision of housing meeting an identified need at an appropriate density that has the potential to release housing elsewhere as a result of future occupiers being able to right size into a new property. Economic development, so the proposal would create economic development in the town centre and it would result in the creation of jobs. There's also an affordable housing contribution and a seal contribution. And as discussed, there is commitment by the cinema operator to invest in the listed building. So securing works to the cinema can only be justified in planning terms where it is required to outweigh the harm to the significance of the heritage asset and make an otherwise unacceptable scheme acceptable. The harm, as already spoken about, is at a low level of less than substantial harm. There are clear benefits already associated with the retirement complex before even considering any works to the cinema. The £200,000 is not an insignificant amount of money, but it does not ultimately limit how much the cinema operator may wish to spend on the refurbishment. It's considered that this amount is an appropriate amount that could be secured in light of the scheme's other benefits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any? Councillor Marshall.
So I've got fond memories of the cinema as a teenager and younger adult, and I want the cinema to reopen and be a community asset again for the people of Sutton and North Birmingham as a whole. But I think we all agree it needs modernising. Given the good public transport links that Sutton has, the large residential community within its walking distance, I can see a future for the cinema. The new retirement home should actually mean more demand for people to use the cinema and help boost spending on the high street in the town centre. Money's ring-fenced for the redevelopment of the cinema, and we need to make sure that the cinema operator has asked for what they need to their word, and that they will upgrade the building so it's fit for purpose. So I'm mindful to accept. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I am rather apprehensive about this application for two reasons. First one, obviously, is the loss of the car park. Removing car parks at all, really, I think it's a pretty stupid idea. And regardless of this idea around modal shift, it is important to support by having sufficient car parking available. And particularly, it's a valid argument that the car park supports the future of the cinema itself, and I suspect it may struggle if the car park is not there and it is able to reopen. The second is that it signifies a lot of what the objector says in terms of securing the future of the cinema and ensuring it's viable, and if it isn't viable, alternative uses for it, which may again be harmed by the loss of the car park. But we can only consider the application that's before us today. A lot like Councillor Marshall, I've been to the cinema as well as a child. Fond memories of it. It's a key landmark in Sutton Coldfield. And if this funding helps give that resuscitation to get it going again, then I am minded to overlook the loss of the car park to support that, only on the basis that the sale help restore that. That's the important thing. And since that is part of the legal agreement on that, I will.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I just ask about the loss of the car in terms of the local houses? I've got friends who live in that area, and it says in the report something like, most people have got off-road parking. If you've got off-road parking, it means you've got, drop curves, which means you can't park. And I live on a road in Erdington where I was told when the car park went to the leisure centre that it wouldn't have any effect on my road, but it had a tremendous effect. So I, like Councillor Moore, feel that I personally go in my car when I go to the cinema, and I would like that alternative. But if there's no car parking facilities, I do worry about the local people. So what did you?
Well,
what consultation did you do with the locals?
Well, there are other alternatives. Obviously, we've spoken about broader modal shift, which has been sought. There's been obviously a lot of discussion about that. But in terms of alternatives for people who do want to use their private car, there are, by being within the town centre, there are public car parks. There's a public car park on Duke Street. There's one further down towards Plantsbrook School. But also there is a service road outside the cinema there's on-street parking along Birmingham Road. So by removal of this private car park, there are still public car parking options available to people if that is how they choose to come to the cinema. If they wish to visit.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of, Stone Parade and all that. I know the area very, very well. But I'll be honest, speaking from my own point of view, I go to Star City and I get in my car and I park and walk in and come out. I don't particularly want to, late at night, a massive long, because it's you're talking about quite considerable distances. Parking, because you can go in your car. I mean, I'm like Councillor Moore, I personally want to see the cinema open. I agree with the contribution from the gentleman. Right from the outset, I thought £200,000 was just nowhere near sufficient to upgrade that building. To the open, but at the same time, I understand the need, the desperate need, sort of elderly accommodation that's been proposed. So I will reluctantly be voting for it, but I wanted that to be made now.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. This paperwork was attached, I think it's by the developer. Basically, what it says here, it says that the development will save the NHS and the social care system approximately 3,500 per person. How that gonna happen? And somebody gives a clarification on it.
Are there any more questions or comments? And then I'll bring the officer back. Do you understand?
Sorry.
I'm not sure it's part of the application
They're
itself.
saying it would lead to a saving in terms of social care budgets and the National Health Service. Yeah.
Right, I mean that's not within the officer report. That's within the applicant's submission, and that's their contract. That's what they are saying. It is recognised that this form of more independent retirement living can, in the long term, have a saving compared to people living in more intense accommodation.
I'm going to put it to the vote. Can I just make it clear that although the two reports are obviously linked, report 8 and 9, we have to consider report 8 on the merits of the information before us. And just again, draw your attention to the officer's comments at the beginning of the meeting in terms of the amended conditions, which will seek to ensure as best as possible that some of the capital from the sale of that site will go towards the refurbishment of the cinema. If that were not possible in the long term, it would go to other social housing in the area. So, can I see those in favour of the application? Approved with 7 votes in favour and no votes against. Thank you. And we move to item 9, which is the report on the Odeon Cinema.
No updates on this item, Chair.
Any further comments on this report? Are you prepared to go to the vote? Can I see those in favour of this application with the conditions listed? That's 7 votes in favour, no votes against. That's approved, subject to those conditions. Thank you. Can we move on to item 10, which is the report on Windsor Street, Nechells, the gas holder station. Any updates on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one minor update. Paragraph 7.1 refers to the Director of Legal Services. It actually needs to refer to the city solicitor. Terminology there in paragraph 7.1.
Okay. Any questions or comments from members on this one? Councillor Marsham.
Yes. The gasworks were part of Nechells and part of the city skyline. I think, speaking personally, I'm sad that they went, especially as they were clarifying the bit of links to that. But obviously, they were no longer of operational use. No relation to the club there in terms of operational use either. Obviously, in its heyday, had thousands of Brummies locally working on the site, and hopefully our decision here will enable that land to go to good employment opportunities again in the future.
Thank you. No other comments? Are you prepared to vote on the recommendation in 7? All those in favour? Votes in favour, no votes against. That's carried. Thank you. Report number 11 is land adjacent to Carey Academy, 867 Warren Road, King's Standing. Any
yes. Do just have a couple of updates for this. So, members may have spotted the comment from the West Midlands Fire Service on this application. That has been shared with the applicant, and the applicant has reviewed those objections, consider that the matter can be dealt with post-planning with building control. He will consider it against fire safety approved document B. The extension which has been proposed here will be occupied by a max of 3 people, and the extension will have all the required fire detection and fighting equipment installed alongside fire separation of the walls and the roof as required under building regulations. They already have fire safety equipment checked and updated annually as part of their liability, and we'll do the same for the proposed tailoring unit in front of you today. In light of all this, officers have approached West Midlands Fire Service, who stated that in the case of a fire, a delay will occur in firefighting actions due to the narrow and long access road. However, this can be mitigated by installing a sprinkler within the building. In addition, an alarm can be connected to an alarm receiving centre, which could lead to the discovery of a fire outside operating hours and when the building is closed. So in conclusion, officers remain of the view that there are no grounds to refuse this application in planning terms due to the width and length of the existing access, and matters will be addressed outside the planning process and under building regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments on this? Put to vote. All those in favour? Six. Any against? Abstentions? That's carried with 6 votes in favour, 1 against.
1 abstention. None against and 1 against.
Sorry, I do apologise. None against and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 12, which is the report on land at Lower Essex Street, St Hurst Street and Sherlock Street. Any updates?
No updates, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one? Some revised conditions on a report that's been well discussed at this committee in the past. Can I see those votes in favour? 6 votes in favour, no votes against. That is carried. Final report on the agenda is vacant land at 48 Van Close, Small Heath. Any updates, Eddie?
No updates, thank you, Chair.
Any questions or comments from members? To accept the recommendations. All those in favour? Votes in favour, none against. That is carried. Any other urgent business? There being none, can you agree the necessary authority to chair and officers, chief officer? Is that agreed? Thank you very much.